misdemeanor depends on how it's sentenced.
Right.
So, anyways, I'm
All
glad to
right.
see that you're out in one piece. So,
I'm glad to, yeah.
have you ever been in jail before?
I've been in a prison van before. I've never been in jail before.
You've never been in. Well,
First time
uh,
for everything.
it was a first time for everything, and indeed, they're meant to be shitty, and they are, but they're certainly not terrible. Communists certainly can withstand being in jail for now every once in a while. So, do we have everyone on? Can we see everybody, please?
Sure. How's it going, y'all?
Good. Oh, well, there's a friend I haven't not seen for a while. How are you?
I'm tired.
You're tired. All right. Well, not everyone gets to see me, and there's good ways to see me and bad ways to see me. But you're seeing me this way, and I guess we'll see what kind of way that is. But I think it should be. I think I should be able to speak to your concerns. If you're, I'll certainly do my best to. So, what do you all want to know?
Um, so what I would prefer to know, and I'm not going to speak on everyone, I'm just going to speak for me.
Uh-huh.
'Cause I'm me. As you already know, I've been in this organization half my life, and I was told a very specific line narrative approach in 2014, and like Dan was not a first-hand account witness. He told me what he knew from whoever told him. You would be closer to what happened there. So I wanted to just ask very plainly, very truthfully, very honestly, the totality, as much detail as can be provided, because how this has made me think of like everything that has happened. I just want to know the 10 yards. And that's just my
All
first.
right. Sure. It's not none of this is a huge secret. By the way, and the video that the record did, who I certainly know well, piece of trash. Uh, I'm still angry about that. I'm still angry about it. It's absolute garbage. So here's the facts, and there's going to be limits to what I'm going to say. And the reason is because when we have people who do wrong, particularly people who violate the policy on sexual assault and harassment, we investigate. And the reason we're able to investigate is people know that there's some degree of observation of their privacy within that, so we don't so we don't hand out the details of the accusations. But in this case, in Florida, by the way, there was never a complaint, not one. Uh, the person involved did not want a complaint and did not bring one forward ever. Uh, Hence, it was difficult to look into, but there wasn't a sexual assault either. Um, and that's actually what happened. The person who was kind of at the center of this didn't want stuff done with it, didn't want a lot of noise around it, and whatever. We proceeded accordingly. There was no complaint, and I'll add some points though to kind of contextualize it. In the adult world, there's all sorts of things that go on, including relationships that are covert, and I think we all know that. And that being the case, again, we looked into the matter. I think we acted in a principled way, and I'm actually good with it entirely. And I do know the details of what happened.
Yeah, could you, because there was some, and you did say that, you wouldn't share everything because of the privacy, right? Like,
Yeah.
could we go into it, please?
What do you need to know?
So for me,
So there was no assault. It didn't happen. An assault did not take place.
so nothing at all happened.
I didn't say that,
Okay.
but
Let's rephrase the
I
question.
said there wasn't an assault,
Okay.
and I'm saying that the person most directly involved, who did not want to bring forward any complaint, and
Okay.
did not. And hence, if there had been complaints, I think you probably know we actually deal with them in an extremely rigorous way.
Okay.
I think you're aware of that from Texas.
I'm aware of that from
Yeah,
Texas and Utah, but
yeah, we do. We are rigorous about this, but in that case, there wasn't one.
so what did happen, right? Because, and do you
Well,
want me to contextualize what Dan said to me? Because I
sure.
don't know.
Tell me what Dan said to you, and I'll tell you if it's true or not.
Okay. So what Dan said to me, this would have been November when all this shit is blowing up in Communism 101, right?
Okay.
People may not be aware, but it was like some fucking Facebook group, right?
Hmm.
Dan was an admin. It blows up there. I was originally involved in SDS at the time. This was not an SDS started by any members of FRSO. It was just kind of cooperated into, like, friendly forces, um, etc. And Dan tells me specifically, like, 3 points. I could bring up the texts, but I want to somewhat paraphrase so that I'm not just waiting to bring up the texts. That there's 4 overall points. The first point is that, like, it's still an investigation, right? It is being investigated. So the purpose of, and to give more context, like the SDS in question, my former SDS, wanted to put out a statement because at this time, different SDSs, depending on it, are sometimes putting out statements asking for clarification, statements, information, right? So he's telling me there's an investigation going on right now, and he wanted. I wasn't successful, and I do have some disagreements of how he was trying to force me to basically struggle as I'm the only lone FRSO person, and if I go like, oh yeah, FRSO didn't do anything, it kind of outs me, right? As like, because this is a particular situation of either I remain in that SDS or I'm kicked out as like a rape apologist.
Hmm.
Um, that's the first thing. The second thing, somewhat similar to what you said, but somewhat not similar, is that he said that, no one likes Dustin Ponder. If Dustin Ponder did anything, he'd be removed. That Dan advocated on removing Dustin Ponder, even. I don't know the truth of that. That's just what he said. So that, it's the character assessment of like Dustin Ponder was not like someone who was so valued by the organization as to keep him.
There's certainly a truth to that. So there was an investigation. So Dan so far is 2-2 on telling you the truth.
So then the third, let me see if I try to remember correctly. The third point, and this is where it gets different, is that so he said 2 different things. The first thing is that there were attempts to reach out to the victim, and the victim, or alleged victim, whatever we want to say, right, did not want to respond. But also there was this specific line or position that like was also like pushing the victim to not talk to the organization and instead have the organization speak to her. That was some of the more confusing things. Sometimes he would say this, and sometimes he would just in the Facebook posts. And then the final thing is that, with in regards to the very fact of like the investigation is that no one knows anything, right? It's just that there is something that happened, right? It's something revolving Dustin and someone, and that there are attempts to investigate it. They need to be meted out, and SDS is probing and prodding when resolved. That's what Dan originally told me circa 2014. And to give further context, when Javi approached you during the thing in LA, don't remember
Emergency
the name.
summit against deportations.
There you go. That you had told him that actually, in spite of the, difficulties of talking with the victim, and that, like, it's given mail, it's left unread, right? That actually somehow, and correct me if this is either a misinterpretation or miscommunication, because it's Javi telling me, not you telling me, that Javi said that you said to them that Dustin was proven innocent of anything that particularly happened in that case. That you would quote, be willing to put your life savings and eat shit over it.
Well, I probably said I would bet my car. I also probably didn't use the phrase proven innocent. I would certainly say there was poor behavior among all involved, and it was probably more than two. It was more than two people. And that being said, yeah, there absolutely wasn't really a case here. Yeah, I would bet my car on it. I would bet my life on it. There wasn't a case here, as far as I know, of what the investigation showed. Obviously, I wasn't there on the evening in question, so all I have done is talked with people who do know.
And to ask the people you did talk to, it would have been like Fern and Steph, right?
Would have been
Or
Steph.
okay.
Steph was always in charge of investigating these things for the group.
Okay. Because like on the one hand, I like if it's not assault, because the main thing that in looking back on some of the things that has like somewhat concerned me, and that's why like I personally would have preferred one-on-one, but we are where we are. It's a question of, so what did happen? I know very infamous posted stuff, right, at that time regarding sanctions, right? And I just wanted to know if you can give a timeline or something of like, what had happened, what was the means of investigation, because at least from what who used to be with us and has issues of their own, that like Walt's trying to say that, well, he was sanctioned and he violated the sanctions, and he was able to get off scot-free. I don't know, because not only was I not there, the email chain that he posted, right, it's clipped off. But like,
Yeah,
when we say that like there's nothing happened, but there's sanctions, something happened, and like it was taken serious enough to put sanctions, which is good. And I just wanted to like know a bit more of that, if that's fine.
Yeah, and now I'm going to tell you I'm just doing my best. We're talking about things 9 years ago, so
10
and
years.
obviously there are no notes on this topic.
That's
So I mean, as you would kind of expect. So, and actually, if you kind of listen pretty carefully to what I'm saying, there's a kind of a narrative here, which because I brought up the issues several times of issues of covert relationships. If you know it,
No,
and I'll do it.
Assume I'm dumb. I might
Okay.
be dumb.
So I'm saying that in the adult world, there are people who engage for a number of reasons in covert relationships. They date and they don't tell anybody that that's what's going on. All right.
Oh, it's like cheating.
So I'm just saying that happens in the world. I'm not going to say if it happened in this case.
Okay.
So anyways, you have a lot going on in the world. So my recollection of the whole matter is that while the investigation was going on, indeed, Dustin was suspended. And we did keep at arm's length for a bit. But when we actually got to the facts of the matter, there wasn't a case. And he was brought back. And that's my memory of it. And later he left the organization. He was a person who just quite frankly wasn't a good communist. And but in terms of that incident, he hadn't done something worthy of being kicked out, and that's just the facts,
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I'm giving it to you the best I can,
No,
without going through blow by blow what happened in the room,
I understand. Hold on, because I want to ingrain everything.
So
So
yeah, there was no cover up. It actually would have been a lot easier to get rid of him, by the way, than it was to carry him. He wasn't that valuable of a person to kind of go all out. It just didn't make sense. And if you recall, at the time we were under a ferocious attack, and we weren't going to let our enemies determine our membership. And it was an ideological point. And again, there just wasn't the case there to throw the dude out.
and I wanted to, and it may be difficult, but I just wanted to ask is like when you say like, that there wasn't a case, and this is like the thing that kind of rung interesting to me, because it's like, to my interpretation, and I'm always ready to admit to be wrong or like that just, because I was mostly 2014, 2015. So unfortunately, right, I was brought in when all this shit's coming up. I would not want to do it again because it was having to deal with a lot. Other comrades had to deal with it worse, like in Florida at Ground Zero. But when it went from investigation to there's, like the investigation is completed, right? There's no more need to like have him suspended to bring him back. Because I know that, he left for whatever reason. Javi said that that you said it was due to like political disagreements. Andy said that like he ran on and he didn't say it like this exactly. But given the fact that he's involved with like 512 and one of the co-founders of United 512, it's like a reform caucus that he ran for like office and that he lost and that he left over that. I don't know if it's exactly like that. It could be more nuanced. It could be exactly like that. I don't know Dustin. He's been on my Facebook friends for years, but I haven't had the pleasure or displeasure of the man.
Is he still on Facebook? I think he's unfriended me. But
well, he's on Facebook.
Okay. Interesting.
But it does go to the what
so no, there's no that time frame. There's no real relationship there. Basically the investigation, as I recall, it didn't really take that long. I think I knew I felt like I knew the full story within like 4 or 5 months. Especially, and probably that was part of the problem, is kind of knowing the full story. There wasn't really the option of just kind of cutting our, basically of cutting our losses. It wasn't the principled thing to do. It just wasn't, people do something wrong, you throw them out. But in this case, there wasn't something there to throw him out with. And he had quite a sojourn. After that, sojourn. He was up in New York, and I think after his New York experience, he came back and reconnected with some people, and then ran for office. Is my recollection of it.
And then I know that apparently you know or the displeasure of knowing.
I'm well aware of who she is. Yes, I keep track of her.
Could you tell me, because I knew of that video for years, I only recently saw it. So could you like, because that's the one thing, let me pull back a bit for maybe further context. So this is what I know just from context clues. Was a part of SDS. They were doing anti-rape culture stuff. Very friendly with Soul, Chrisley, etc. And then something happens. Maybe contacts her or something. And then immediately, like, it's from 0 to 100. And then the whole shit with November, etc., etc. It is it's specifically just the wonder of like from your knowledge of them or her, I don't know their pronouns, I'll just use both until I'm told otherwise. Like I understand, and I was told like their records, they're trying to take over the SDS, but I'm more so interested in the fact of like just what was their involvement, how did they know the information. Again, like I can make the impression of just but in case there's more, right, I don't want to just go off of impressions. And like when she confronted Steph during that International Women's Day, and asked Steph like a very particular question, that's the most like the major question I have, because like everything else can like be talked on, but that's like my major question. I think you know where I'm kind of going and like why
No,
it's kind of
actually, I'm missing the major question. I mean, as a wrecker, she's still an enemy of our organization and tries to throw sticks in her spokes every once in a while. She had her own group for a while called the Orlando Workers League. She actually had a tie-in with the American Party of Labor for a bit there too, but I think that didn't suit her as well. But anyway,
so the
what's
question is like, oh, go ahead. No, you
no?
finish.
What's the question? I
The
don't know where
question
you're
is,
going with it.
so
I haven't watched the video for years,
yeah.
so
So like approaches Steph back and forth, yada yada. The main thing is ask Steph, wasn't he accused of sexual assault prior?
well, I can answer that.
And
No,
no.
no, unequivocal no.
Okay, because at least in the
No.
video, that like Steph takes a minute and goes, yeah, that like specifically that there was a previous accusation, the organization investigated it, meaning Steph investigated it, and like it was credible. It may
No.
not have been sexual assault, it may have been some other misconduct, but were there any other allegations prior that you know of?
Well, certainly. So they were a friend group, and without getting into all of yeah, I think there might have been like a rent payment issue that divided the Tampa comrades for a bit, where somebody didn't pay their fair share of the rent. But there was stuff like that. I don't remember any sex case against Dustin. I would know too. That would be like a big fucking deal if there had been, because if there had been, it would have actually decided the second one. But that's just not true that there was a previous case.
And do you know like why Steph would like, because that's the main thing, right? Of like Steph
Well,
saying yes. That's like that kind of set
she,
up a lot for me.
yeah, I actually, it's kind of funny. I actually talked to her about the whole thing today because we're both kind of struggling to remember it. And I think she would tell you exactly what I'm telling you. No, there was no previous accusation against. Uh, just wasn't. She was in a tough spot there. She went down there to help out a group that was under a lot of pressure during IWD. You may or may not know Steph is actually my best friend. Um, and I think what happened to her there was terrible. And she was ambushed. She was embarrassed. She was, whatever, being hit with motherfuckers on a doing a video hit on her. And yeah, I think she actually mentioned today she probably would have handled it different. But i.e. not engaged with them at all. But whatever. It was a very difficult experience, and it's one that's hard to handle with grace. Yeah.
Okay. Ugh, work is killing me.
Yeah, I think what happened to her there was terrible, and I think behavior was awful too, and it was cop-like behavior, quite frankly.
And then okay. Cause like, as you know, Mick, I was more or less brought in through like Lucero, so I had the pleasure or displeasure of the experience with that man. And
We
the
have
whole
had some characters. I'll give you that.
uh, we should hopefully we stop having characters of that caliber.
Yeah, me too.
Because
But
the main thing. Oh, go ahead. No,
go
you
ahead.
go.
I'm sorry.
Because like it's like the the thing with Lucero and like the Florida thing and like me being through all this because I was very much of well, perhaps the now incorrect line of that the investigation was stonewalled. So you're saying that the investigation was like that, like
It was like 4 months. I knew what happened within 4 months, 4 or 5 months. It was pretty quick. And I forget the exact agency, like of how I came to know. I do know at that time we were tending not to use telephones. We're actually tending to do direct things.
yeah,
Um, just because of the whole security environment that existed at the time. Um, and I think this all happened right about what 2014 or something like that. So we would have still had the Carlos case going on too, probably.
yeah.
Um,
2014 at least when it becomes public. And that's kind of the main thing is like at least according to the implication with like the sanctions, like this actually takes place in 2013
all
because
right.
when Andy came over, and this
Yeah.
was again, it was kind of like a whiplash to me being there in the trenches of like that nothing happened, and then it was brought up in 2014 when there was at least conflicting statements from like Greg and Dan that like maybe there was something that happened and it was complicated or there was nothing that happened, and the main thing to take away is don't talk about it. If people want to talk about it, they have to specifically talk to Dan. um, the thing that we did is that also anyone who was brought into the organization for I think 3 to 4 years, we talked about the Florida thing, which could have been an error, could have been a good thing, uh, lots of issues. But this is a lot of thoughts from me, um, and I don't want to jibber jabber yabber, uh, but you know, because this is a conversation, it is a two-way street. I guess like what are your thoughts to like, be here because this is relatively, you could say, old news, but it's being brought up again. And I'm here, and I'm here, and he's here, and Rick's here. And
Sure. I'm quite frankly, I'm extremely surprised actually that actually after a decade or maybe more, as you were indicating, that this would come up again. I want to say one thing in terms of our policy on sexual harassment and such. We enforce it rigorously and vigorously. And I'm actually proud of the way that it's dealt with. On the issue of Dustin in Florida, I'm actually proud of that too. We did the principled thing, even at great loss. And furthermore, I'll tell you the truth, I was never a fan of Dustin. The motherfucker left me sitting on a street corner in Harlem without a place to stay for quite a few hours one night while he was out drinking. So I'm not on part of his fan base at all. There just wasn't grounds to throw the man out or punish him. We looked into it. We know what happened. And I believe to this day that had we sanctioned him, threw him out, really, that it would have been an injustice. It might have served him right because he was an asshole, but it wouldn't have been for what he was accused of. And that's for sure. So.
And I suppose final thing on
And
this.
actually, even the phrase, when I say accused, he wasn't. He was accused by a company. He was not accused by what's called the person the victim, just because there has to be a way to discuss the matter.
Yeah.
That person, 100%, didn't want shit done with this.
Could you elaborate then on and it's a bit hard again, but because in 2013 he sanctioned and bringing this up in 2014, maybe bringing it up in 2013, but
Yeah,
everyone looks happy hokey dokey in 2013 in Tampa, and then they don't. But that's life, isn't it? That's kind of the main thing is because there are sanctions. So who is the original complainant? I know with the thing of the being told she's the self-appointed victims advocate. Was she ever in contact with the victim? She or just they were proclaiming it, or you don't know? It's fine to say.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly probably did know at one point. It's not like I'm working from notes or something like that from 11 years ago.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say is, I feel pretty comfortable about that. I know what happened, and that and I don't think we've done anyone an injustice. And by the way, as a communist, that kind of thing is important to me. So anyway, as you might know.
Yeah. Because that it answers some of my questions. And I guess just, this is also preferably why I would have wanted to just talk to you one-on-one so that we could talk on other matters in regards of how things could connect or disconnect. If you're fine with that, it's fine. If you're not fine with that, it's not fine. But
I'm fine with talking you one-on-one. I mean, you haven't said anything. I mean, do you have any question? By the way, I didn't necessarily. I'm just trying to be helpful here. If there's things that people actually need to know to be organizationally sound, I'm willing to do that. There's things obviously that I'm not going to do either. But do you feel good about this discussion, or is this answered your points? Or
I mean, the only thing that's sort of confusing to me is that mentioned earlier that there was the video where they confront Steph, and Steph said, asked very directly, is this Justin's first time around with sexual assault allegations or accusations? And Steph said it's not his first time around. And then they ask, and those accusations were found to be truthful, and Steph said yes. And what you're telling us is the opposite of what Steph is saying in that video.
Yeah.
So you understand why that would be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, and as I said, my analysis of it is, I haven't looked at the video in years, but I certainly did watch it more than once when it came out. I feel very bad for what happened to her there, and um, whatever. And she was in a difficult spot, and when yeah, in that context can have a lot of different meanings. So. And again, I'd have to go back and watch the video if I was going to deconstruct it, but there wasn't prior accusations against him. There was problems, but anyways. But there's problems with a lot of the folks down there. They're all young. Young people have problems.
So I do have other questions, some of which relate to Florida, some of which don't. And I do want to take into consideration the time and the scope and breadth of this. But do you have any questions, Mick? Because there are a lot of things in my head right now, and I'm trying to think of like particular ways to, like, even this conversation, there were ways of like how it was originally brought up and then was like redressed, but then redressed, that kind of like put me off base a bit, and it was just, I guess, like the most neutral ways to say is like it was interesting. But
Well, let me just say this, and that is, as the political secretary of our organization, I try very, very hard to follow the channels that exist for communicating with people. I try very hard not to interfere in the lives of districts without actually going through the correct ways of doing it, which is basically my activities need to be approved by the standing committee, and then we operate through the person responsible for the city. Hence, that's why Andy is here observing me. And not simply because he got the video, but he's responsible for your city. And so anyways, so I told the SC that I was very willing to meet with folks to help clear up any misconceptions that existed. I did have a great deal of knowledge about the thing at the time. I still have a fair amount, probably more than anyone other than Steph. And so yeah, I'm glad to discuss things with anybody, but it really needs to be approved by Andy is the kind of the decider here, and I don't think it's necessarily entirely fair to him that we certainly can speak on other matters here if it's okay with Andy, but I'm mainly here to clear up this,
yeah, that's why I didn't want to like interject. And what I mean specifically, the manner of the conversation, there are 2 points on it. The first of which is that, and Andy knows this, Andy may or may not have told you, but like it was specifically of just like, that originally this was talked of a conversation that like someone from the SC, we didn't know it was you, but it's you, was going to be talking to myself, and it then changed very particularly where I was told it was exclusively going to be, and the manner of which of how it was discussed in the particular context was something that I didn't jive with. It was rectified, and it was made to like, anyone could participate. Other folks of the DC wanted to be on here, but then that changed, and now we're here. And if you want to
Sure.
either clarify some of this stuff or want me to clarify, it's fine.
That certainly has a lot to do with me, but Andy has his hand up. He can certainly address it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I visited, what we had discussed was that you and had questions, that weren't answered by my visit and the information that I had. And so I would ask the SC about setting something else and having someone with more knowledge about it later. And then when we got around to it, was communicating with Rick. I think because of May Day coming up, my understanding was that it would be more convenient to do it after May Day. And so that's what I was planning on. Then when we got to actually concretely scheduling it, Rick asked me if that there were other members of the DC were interested, and without really thinking about it, I was like, sure, let's get it scheduled. Figure out who wants to go. Whatever. Let's set a time. But I didn't consider that what was raised to the SC and decided on by the whole standing committee body to have someone speak with y'all. The proposal was just with and so that was my error in like making an assumption or kind of not paying close attention to should this be just everybody who wants to so that I hope that explains some of that.
Yeah.
Rick, you have your hand up too?
No, I couldn't hear Andy very well. I think your volume was a little low, but I didn't want to stop you from saying it. I could hear it. It was kind of low.
Okay.
But I can, I tried my best to communicate things that were said, at least from Andy to the DC. And, these things happen. These are understandable facts. And I mean, the message I got was that Mick was interested in speaking with because there seemed to be a crisis of faith, and we're here and we're discussing things, and I'm sure that a lot of the questions that we did have are answered. Doesn't mean that there won't be future questions, but I think this resolves several issues. There were no issues from my side. There were questions, but when Andy came, those explanations were enough for me, and so I'm quite satisfied. I don't doubt the organization's decisions at all, and I'm happy with whatever.
Okay, is there anything else people wish to know from me?
So I was also very uncomfortable with the way that all of this has played out so far, not just with the way that this happened, right, is Javi brought up the issue to you at the conference. Andy was very quickly dispatched to Dallas, and like within that week, Andy spoke to Joe and to Javi. I asked Javi what they spoke about, and it sounded like they were asking questions about like, well, why is this coming up? Asking questions about like me, and then Andy comes to Dallas and insinuates I'm a wrecker, without actually having any answers to like the questions that I had. So like the whole process has felt up until this point like very like defensive, which doesn't really like. Which, I mentioned during the meeting with Andy that after all the stuff with Dan, like my trust in the center has been dramatically damaged, and that certainly didn't help. I want to believe what you're telling me, but I feel like I'd like to see something more concrete. In the video with Steph and, for example, there's like just like emails between the two of them. So if there's like correspondence that happened between people that all the different characters that were involved in the situation that we could see, if you want to redact them, that's fine. But like anything that can sort of like I don't expect you to have it like on hand right now, but if that's something that we could see, that would I think help a lot. I'm I wanna believe everything that you're telling me, but I'm not willing to go on just like trust alone here.
Yeah, well, I'm not quite sure what we can do about that then, because as I said, I wasn't in the room, and you certainly weren't either. But I feel very confident I know what happened. Uh,
So I mean, I think what you can do about that is just like I said, if there's correspondence like emails, if we could see those, that'd be great.
yeah, and somehow I would very strongly doubt such things exist, but certainly I can ask. But I would be shocked actually if there was that still existed. But anyways,
I finally found the emoticon. And Noda, I guess to be very clear, like when I say like when I didn't jive, it's not so much even like the back and forth of, oh, it's, and now it's company, and now it's and now it's a different company. Like that's the nature of meetings. But it's more so like, when it was originally brought to me, it was, and then I was told it was only, and like, there was like heavy implication of like, it would not only be only, but that the context of even like why we're having this conversation is like, based on like a question of like loyalty, right? And when I originally, raised that and then raised it with Andy, it was settled. Like that's what I specifically mean. That's what I specifically mean as like why I didn't jive with like that contextualization. It could be improper contextualization given information involved, but like when I heard that, I had two thoughts. The first of which is like, I feel like I deserve, to have the conversation, simply because of like, I've been. I'm not going to assume your age, Mick, but I've been probably here like almost a quarter, if not a sixth of Mick's life here, and like it 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 affected me. Um, and two, that like just the framing, the framing of how like I was originally told, um, in that context, and when it was eventually resettled, then it's like okay, but that's what I mean. I'm not saying you, Mick, or you, Andy, like that it's like, because I know, and I do somewhat appreciate that, Mick, of maintaining to our more structure of like communication, because I know back in 2014 specifically that it was Wild West. You could call anyone. There were benefits to that. There were also not benefits to that, because it creates a very improper channel structure. But that's what I specifically am meaning.
so let me speak to a couple of points here, and I think it's always good to be direct. And when I heard Javi's points at the conference, I became concerned about the situation in Dallas. You've recently had a transition to new leadership. That can be a source of instability. I've been around a long time. You're right. I'm 68 years old. Uh, and I was in the predecessor organizations to Freedom Road. So I've been around for a minute. So yeah, I became worried about when I heard what was going on there, about the issue of Dan and about the issue of this old thing coming up, which yeah, I was extremely concerned, and what I said about it was a couple of things. Number one, we didn't agree with your decision to expel Dan, and that said, nobody is going to force Dan upon you. Um, And that's what I said. It was almost exact words I used. I actually tend to use words fairly carefully. And then two is I was extremely puzzled about this thing from 2013. We're now saying um, kind of coming up, and so yeah, it was concerning, and so I raised it in the SC, and yes, we do want to act swiftly. Your city is a very important one. No one there, by the way, is considered a wrecker. Just to be real clear, I wouldn't be on a phone conversation with people who I thought were wreckers or potential wreckers. I just wouldn't. I have a number of labor people who'd like to meet with me this evening. Instead, I'm talking with you. So if you were wreckers, I would not be. I assure you, I would be with the labor folks. So anyway, so everybody here is respected, and that's why you're here. I've tried hard to address in actually a pretty direct way uh, your concerns. Now, I think you do have a choice to believe me or not. Um, and there's different ways you could probably look at it. What you think of my level of integrity, you can think about it like that. You can also think about it in terms of motivations. Um, blah blah blah. But there's different ways of looking at it. One thing actually have no intention of doing, though, is violating the privacy of those involved. And the reason why is actually quite simple, because it would make it impossible for us to conduct investigations in the future, and whatever. And we do investigate when shit comes up, and we are swift and certain with action when things happen. I assure you. So anyway, but that's the genesis of this, how we got to hear from my perspective. So anyway, Comrade raised things which they have a right to do. When I was in LA, I addressed them with what I understood to be the general line of the SC. And it was decided by the SC that I would be the one who meets with those concerned and explain this to you. I was the one, by the way, who asked to have Rick present for this because I thought it was actually important that the people who are in the direct line, the chain of knowledge, chain of command, Andy and Rick also be here for this. Because again, we are really trying to do this whole channel thing where we don't have leading people just sticking their nose into everything, and it goes especially for me, because I actually like to stick my nose places. So anyway, I'm not doing it, and I'm trying to respect Andy, and I'm trying to respect Rick, and so anyways, and by implication, by the way, I'm respecting both of you and spending my time with you. So.
At least for Florida, because again, I don't want to be a carousel asking questions for answers that you've already given, whether I would find it satisfactory or not, right? Like the carousel only goes one way, and once you've been on it once, second or third time's not as interesting. And I will be very direct in the same way. I do have more questions, but not regarding Florida. They are on different topics. But I do want to give.
What would the topics be, just out of curiosity?
Some of those topics would consider like Lucero very directly, and his things. The other one would be, because I want to ask just to make sure.
Greg was thrown out of the group. He was expelled.
And
there was an accusation made, and when it was made, he was expelled almost immediately, actually.
Because I know there were two incidents. There was the incident between him his former partner, and then there was the whole mess of his relationship between him and I specifically had questions as to like, you know, like the second time he's thrown out, but it's the first time which makes it interesting as like I just wanted to know.
Well, I can say how I remember it, and I
Yeah.
have a pretty good memory of things. My memory of it is that uh, there was one complaint that was brought forward. The complaint, actually, I think this is, I'm not sure of, but I think it was actually either while we were writing the policy or the policy already exists. The complaint was brought forward and acted on almost immediately. And there wasn't like two investigations or something like that. There was the one that, uh, when it came to me, when I saw it, it was immediate, and it was that one, and that was what did him in.
Okay. So you said when the policy was being written or had already been written, because I know, and perhaps I'm misremembering, I was at least introduced to the policy following my first Congress in 2018. What was, obviously we had perhaps like, you know, unwritten policies, kind of like 101s, don't do fucked up shit type shit. But what kind of sparked the like making it the written policy as it exists now today? And because you've, you know, been here since the stars were first aligned and formed in the gaseous space, what was it before, other than like, you know, it's what it is now, but now written?
So I don't recall the policy coming from a particular incident, other than the fact that the whole thing with Florida had loomed very large in our minds. And we also realized that, you know, we had, uh, so again, we have a lot of young people, we have a lot of people partying and that kind of thing, and a lot of potentials for problems. And so I think the policy was a logical thing to do, and it actually kind of put forward a very clear procedure on okay, you have an accusation, you get a complaint, the complaint is investigated. Uh, we're not going to trample on people's privacies, but we certainly are going to make sure, at least if there's an accusation, the person was actually in the same city at the same time or something like that too. You know, it can't be just see if people float, you know, or that something like that, you know. So I think it was a good thing. I don't think recall there being a particular incident. I thought my memory of the Greg thing is again the moment the complaint came forward, an accusation came forward, and it uh, seemed credible or seemed problematic. He was expelled, and it was just really pretty simple.
And
He
you don't
wasn't
know
he wasn't
any
an
other,
what's that?
and you don't know of any other incident.
No.
Okay.
Again, I'm just saying, I'm telling you what I remember, how I remember it. You know, I certainly knew Greg. You know,
Damn, we all. Well, thankfully the people here don't know Greg, so I can reminisce on how shitty he was. And then like the other question, because I do want to give consideration to time, but you did ask like what the question was. The SC solely voted on the question, to be a bit of a parliamentarian here, because I do sometimes enjoy the stuff. The sole item was to either accept or reject our expulsion of Dan, right? That was the only thing decided. That was like that was the only item on the agenda in terms of what the SC's position was.
no, of course. Why would we? Why it's not how we function. We certainly would have done that in the context of talking about the situation within the city, what information that we had. There would be a number of considerations. Yeah, so no, we certainly did talk about whether or not that we agreed with the expulsion. And what we said is we thought no. We thought that it would be far better for him to take a break. He can be on leave, or you can say he's suspended if you like. But we thought that that would be a far better approach. And again, as I told Javi, nobody's going to force him on you either. Um, and so, anyways, I don't see the problem here actually.
Oh, it's because like very particularly, and I believe Andy raised this criticism to Tom specifically, that Tom had called myself and the DO, and like it wasn't just. Oh, hold on, let me mute myself so I'm not annoyed. Sorry about that. Ah, son of a- okay. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah. That, like, it wasn't just the item was rejected. It was that the item was rejected, and there's, like, an expectation of struggling with Dan. He phrased it to Rick one way, he phrased it to me another. But that's the reasoning for the question of, like, you know, that was there like any other like thought of you know, or was it just that item? And if it was just that item, then, you know, like it's I see the point.
Of course, we never would consider things. No, it wouldn't get to the agenda. It would never, nothing would ever appear in our agenda like, do we accept or not accept a local expulsion? That would never appear in that context, ever, with any. It would always come in anything like that would always come in the context of talking about the situation. Hey, what's going on here? What in general? What are the forces at work? Why might this be happening? You know.
Yeah, because again, most people want to know what it would be like. Because I remember when Ada was expelled. Again, like this is somewhat getting off topic, and you know, you and I can reminisce, but this isn't perhaps the best avenue or time or place of reminiscing. But those would be sort of like the lines of questioning that like I would have. But again, I want to specifically give the time, place, and manner that, like, you know, what is this conversation about? So, you know, that's why, like, if it's possible of like talking further later on, it's fine. And if it's not, it's also fine. If it's not fine, it's not fine.
Well, Andy and Rick both have their hands up, so I'm going to call on them, but Andy first.
I was just raising my hand because I had noticed that Rick had his hand up for a while and wanted to call attention to it.
Oh shit,
Okay.
That's not our fault.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. I missed
No,
you.
You're
You know, you
fine.
can interrupt me too. I'm not going to cry, by the way.
No, I don't expect anybody to cry. But no, I was just, you know, I think most of I was gonna say that I think our concerns regarding Florida are answered. I don't want to super assume it, but I think they're answered for the time being. You know, we were talking about certain cases like, you know, Greg Lucero. You know, I had one particular question regarding, you know, Tom offhand mentioned, you know, kicking out certain people. There was you know, a person in Seattle who was removed, Muntek Singh, and, you know, the explanation was that, you know, he was removed for disciplinary reasons, you know, behavior to women. I didn't get a full answer, nor did I ask. I don't want to assume it's a similar case to any of these previous cases, could be its own thing. I was just curious. I'm not trying to connect dots here. And the second thing I wanted to ask, you know, I mentioned the article yesterday. I don't know if this conversation is germane to here or later, but yeah, those were the two things.
I think Rick was not speaking for everybody because I'm still not satisfied. I think, and I just want to clarify whenever it comes to like, I was asking about correspondence, like, if you want to protect the privacy of the people involved, fair enough. I'd imagine you're not really don't really care about protecting privacy. And Steph alluded to emails between the two of them in that video. So like at the very least, I'm aware of like that one piece of correspondence. There's other correspondence with other correspondence with people that are surrounding the situation that maybe aren't the people involved. If there's a privacy concern, I also would honestly ask if private conversations can be shared, and if they're redacted or anything, that's fine. I are the ones on this call, but we're not the only ones concerned about this. I think as you know, several people asked to be on this call and are not. I don't know if everybody is going to be satisfied by just going off of trust or faith like you're asking us to do here.
Well, unfortunately, I think you're going to have to. And I might take a look for that. I might ask Steph about the emails. I strongly doubt that that would exist, or I actually feel, though, absolutely certain they wouldn't establish what happened in that room that night. That I'll tell you 1,000%. There's nothing in writing that does that. There's nothing on film that does that. So, anyways, if that's what you're looking for, is to like prove a negative that it didn't happen, you're never going to get that. It doesn't exist.
I'm not asking you to prove a negative. I'm asking you to, show anything that sort of like corroborates the sort of because I mean there's a very very harsh narrative of what happened, and obviously you can't like disprove that narrative. Like yeah, you can't prove negative. I agree, but like corroborating the narrative that you're telling us, I think would go a very long way.
Well, you see, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just being direct with you. There's no way it can happen. What would I do?
Well, like I said, if there's correspondence and if there's,
what do you think the correspondence might show, comrade?
Something. I don't know. Something.
Like
Hopefully
what?
something. Anything. More context.
No, I assure you, there is no correspondence that actually talks about what happened that evening.
I don't need to know what happened that evening. I want to know just context surrounding the situation. That's what I'm hoping it'll show me. I don't know what information is in there, but I don't know what information is in there.
Well, give me an example of what this.
I have no idea what information's in there, but I mean, I'm hoping it'll show something. Like if there's correspondence between staff, very clearly I'm going to wreck FRSO or something, then that's useful. Things like that establish what's going on. I don't expect there to be a play-by-play of what happened in the room. But just the more information that we can pick through, the better.
Well, I don't think, and this isn't for me to answer. I feel very confident, however, that we are not going to relitigate this case in Texas. So that's not going to happen. You're not going to carry out your own investigation there with me assisting you.
Understood.
Yeah. It's just. That's not how this works. That's not how a democratic centralist group works. It's not. This isn't reasonable. And I think you know that too.
I know that Rick had asked about Montuck. I've heard it said both ways. So I guess I'll just ask very directly, do you know anything of that situation? If you don't know, you don't know.
I'm sorry, comrade, I don't know of what you speak.
That's fine.
That's totally fine, comrade. That's okay.
Go ahead. I'm just tired.
Could someone clarify to me what Montec is?
I mean, he was a student. He's a student organizer in Seattle of the.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Okay.
There's
There's.
Oh, you want to go, or should I?
I was going to go if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This is my context. So he was a comrade, very the positive way would say outgoing, the negative way would be like very arrogantly braggadocious. I had met him in the student comm of 23, and in that student comm specifically, and I think this is sort of why the DO has brought it up, and if not, then I'll just bring it up as my own point, that when I had raised the issue of what my comrades had brought to me of just like, hey, there was criticism of this comrade for like how he was behaving in general and slight behavior towards women, I had thought that like, oh, let me inform the center contact that I know of, like, there's the situation, that conversation, in my opinion, was not handled too well. That just, the main thing was just struggling with Montec, and that, there would be no specific like involvement in regards to that situation, and that apparently time has went on, and then the situation didn't improve, and that in the context that when Tom had called the DO, that he had said that there was this comrade who he thought he was very promising, and he said, well, you know young men and women, and that apparently there had been a lot of issues related to male chauvinism that directly not only affected organizing in there, but also just the issues of how it even affects the internal organization. But that it was a student comrade, now not a comrade because they're kicked out. They related to like their behavior, and that when it was first raised, it potentially was not handled the best way. But that is at least my context. The DO can also give their own context because I don't want to just speak on them.
But do you think an injustice was done here, or what's the issue? I mean, I believe that the person in question, I didn't recognize the name because I certainly not a level of detail I get to, but I certainly am kind of in general aware of what's going on. I mean, I believe the person was asked to leave.
Was asked to leave, not expelled.
Well, we often do not expel people. We often say that if there's more general. I don't know. They probably could have been expelled too. I just don't know.
Okay.
But I certainly, just to say as a general policy, if somebody hasn't worked out, would prefer to have them just leave as opposed to expel them.
Right. And when for the question, go ahead.
The reason for that is, we have a very large organization at this point, and we actually want to minimize people who are being expelled. So we have people who, if there's conduct, poor behavior, yeah, they might have to go. We say they have to. We ask them to leave. The first result is go-to is not expulsion. We do expel people too, though.
And then when you're asking me of like, do I think an injustice was done
to him?
Go ahead.
I asked you, was there an injustice done to him?
Oh, to him?
Yeah.
No, not to him.
Good.
I think that it should have been dealt with more, certainly. Okay. But like not that like, oh, actually he was anything accused against him was wrong. No, it's even from my brief experiences and other comrades who experienced him in SDS 20, 2023, yes, 2023, that, he, perhaps the best way to frame is like similar to Dustin Ponder in terms of like being a social character. But that's all that I had to say of Montek. But no, I don't think an injustice was done to him at all.
Well, he was a problematic person, and we got rid of him. And I believe fairly swiftly too.
Well, I just had some curiosity regarding that. I had no feelings of that there was he was done wrong or anything. I was just told that he was kicked out because of some misogynistic reasons or whatever. People brought up complaints against him, whatever.
Yeah.
Can happen.
I mean, that's my memory. That's my memory of it too. I mean, it's again, we have a large organization and we make a lot of decisions on issues concerning discipline. So certainly not like I'm looking at a notebook full of them.
Mm-hmm. Are there other items?
From me, no. And also, I do want to eat because I had a long shift today. If I could keep talking to Mick, I would, but I don't have the energy to do so.
All right. Well, I'll just say from my perspective, I'm so certainly open to talking to you more. But that's a decision that actually the SC would have to make if that's something you want to happen. Again, I consider everyone on this call a valuable person. Some of you I know better than others, and but the thing I will not do is, and I'm just saying this unequivocally. I mean, I'll ask Steph about emails, but I feel actually I would bet my car, so to speak, there's not going to be anything there that's going to relieve any that you're going to find there that's going to make you again, it's going to be a smoking gun that proves what I'm saying. Those are mixed metaphors, but there's just not anything on paper like that, or in a physical form, video or whatnot. So it's just that's just not going to happen. So, anyways, it looks like you have a nice cat there. However, and mine is hiding because I'm talking in a harsh voice. So, anyway,
2 cats actually.
well, I did too until one of mine
Yeah.
passed away. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's always, at least to my recollection, it was natural passing. One of my dogs, it was not so much natural, unless you consider a car natural.
Oh, well, sadly, my cat involved the car, but I think the loss of my cat, but it jumped out the window of a moving car. And anyways, that's another story. But anyways, is there more, or otherwise? I think probably we should at least consider retiring for the evening.
Yeah. If you want to talk about the article here, we can talk about it here, or I can call you later.
Yeah, we can talk about. Actually, why don't we talk about it on the phone? Because Andy needs to stay on this because he's like a host or something here, and it's not fair to keep him here all night, Rick. When we can just talk about articles.
Sure, sounds good.
Is that all right?
That's perfectly fine.
Sorry to hear about your cat, Mick.
It happened. It happened like a year ago, and I'm looking around for a kitten to replace it. So, anyways, cats, you miss them, but you also can get others, and they can fill that void, perhaps. So, anyway, all right. So we'll call it a night, and whatever. Again, everyone here is respected, and I'm glad we did this. I suspect not everyone is satisfied, but alas, I think there's probably not much more I can do. So,
Okay. Good
Thank
night.
you.
all right. So good night,
All right.
all.
All right.
Good night,
Thanks
comrade.
for
Take
talking
care.
to us.
All right. Take care, my friends.
Take care.
Bye.